Yeah.
All right. All right, we're going to call this meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. This current board of directors wrote and supports the land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement that we have posted on our board of directors website for everyone to read. Roll call tonight. We have Andrew Endricken and Justin with excused absence, and Joel is not here currently, but he is said he's on his way. Moving into adoption of the agenda, I'm going to make a motion to amend the agenda since Andrew's gone. I'm move to remove his charter from there so he can discuss that. He's here.
Second.
Is there anyone opposed to that? Kim, you're muted.
You cut out. Can you repeat your?
I was just moving to remove Andrew's charter update so that he can be here to discuss the changes that they wanted and stuff. Any opposed? All right, move the agenda's been amended. Do we have a motion to adopt the amended agenda?
I move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right, agenda has been adopted. So start with the consent agenda. If there are no objections to the consent agenda.
I have an objection. I was under the understanding that the older minutes were going to be removed from the consent agenda. Is that not happening? I think, Glenn, I think it was you I talked to. You said that there was some changes or modifications, but that it would be removed from the consent agenda.
Which ones? Which one?
Everything before the 7th of November.
So the 5th of November, there's a discussion that needs to be had here because October 8th and October 22nd minutes were approved at the November 19th meeting. The November 19th minutes never reflected that. And currently, I believe Oryx is trying to get them revised and approved. So until they are, I don't know that we can approve the October 8th and 22nd minutes. I know that they're correct now, but I'm saying we've had a huge hiccup here that there needs to be a real serious discussion about.
Well, just my issue is I was not present at the meetings October 8th, 22nd, November 5th, and I was on the 7th, but not as a board member. So I just feel it's not appropriate to ask people who weren't on the board to approve meeting minutes that they were not participants of.
I agree. And though you're correct, those three sets of minutes, the 5th, the 22nd of October, and the 5th of November, October 22nd and October 28th, that's the 2020 board. Why? And I know Paula was out sick for a while, but why they never got handled before they were all gone, I don't know. I'm concerned because on the 19th, if I go look at these packets I print out faithfully, I can see, and I went back and even listened to the video, that we did approve those minutes. It's just that on the 8th and the 22nd, we approved them on the 19th. The minutes for the 19th do not reflect that those were approved. And that's where I don't know if we approve this until we get all of our ducks in a row. And I'd like some permission to help staff get this all straightened out.
I would like to propose that we modify this to approve the minutes for the 7th and the 25th, because at least the current board was present at those meetings and participating. I just, in my mind, that just feels like that's more of an appropriate ask.
Okay,
That's totally within your realm to do so. And I think Linda's correct. We
struggling.
think we're really close and they're probably correct, but we do need to make sure we get proper procedures. And I don't think we need to approve them somehow. So we have to come up with a way that you're all comfortable doing that. So.
Steffi?
Well, last year Andrew Entricken was the acting president, so he can sign for them.
Right.
And I guess we'll just have to have however many people were on the board. Last year, we only have 4 of us. We don't have a quorum, so. I don't-
Well, how about we just not approve the consent agenda today? We'll bring it back next meeting and we'll get everything squared away. Make sure we got it all in a row and we can put together a little thing just to highlight, what we did, what needed to be adjusted, like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
So we can have some clarity on it, because I know there's been some emails about it too.
the minutes from the 19th have already been posted, so we're gonna have to do here we're taking it away and bringing it back and making a change. There's a couple of things that were brought up online about signatures on the minutes. And I know that this came up partly in 2020 because Director Birchler, who was secretary at the time, had an extended absence. And I know that staff was waiting to try and get stuff posted, but you can't post without a signature. And that's where we found that in Robert's rules, for all those who need to know, in the 12th edition, it states in section 48.7, the signature regarding minutes. Minutes should be signed by the secretary and also can be signed if the assembly wishes by the president. The words respectfully submitted, although occasionally used, represent an older practice that is not essential in the signing of the minutes. I don't know that the board has to vote to have AJ sign them. I understand he has been. I know Steffi works long hours, and it just says that if the assembly wishes, doesn't say we have to vote on it or anything else. And I know that Andrew has been signing them, and there's been an email that will have to be addressed by the board that's to the board, but at least this is out there in a meeting for anybody who wants to know why that's okay.
So there's one person who's concerned, and I appreciate you bringing that up so that then it doesn't become a snowball effect, because that's a political tactic.
Yes,
That
I
is old.
understand. And I'm saying this came up last year.
No,
when
yes, and
Secretary
I'm
Birchler was missing for so long.
right, and I'm really, yeah, I totally appreciate that. I don't see any reason why Linda can't work with staff on minutes. I'm new. I don't know enough. Does anyone object with that, about that?
I do.
You do? Okay. Okay, well, hold on a second. Can I finish? I have one other thing.
No, please do.
I have a huge ask. When we're referring to this, let's not say this is huge or it's it's a mess kind of thing, because it's all fixable. It's like so minuscule. And I so appreciate your input, Linda. Thank you so much. I don't want to minimize that, but I just don't want staff to feel like, called out or
It's
put on.
not on them.
Right. Okay.
No.
So I was just making sure, but yeah. And I don't know. I think I'm just that's all. That was it. Sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
So I just want to be clear. I don't have anything against Linda being involved at all. I just think I want to make sure that we get everything straightened out as far as we know it. And then staff and I will talk to Linda and get kind of so it's just a process thing. We'll do it, get it ready, and then verify with Linda because she has a lot more of the history, as long as the rest of the board is comfortable with that. And then I also want to get, I think you can approve the March 25th meeting minutes if you want to tonight. And I recommend you do that, and the rest of them we'll bring back later.
So while we're spending a minute on the minutes, I think there's some issues with legalities of all this kind of stuff. Sorry, my dog is losing it. On the website, 2011, there's not a single minute to be found. Are those anywhere that we can post up, or is that an issue? Does anyone know?
November what?
No, 2011.
Oh, 2011 minutes?
It's like the board didn't happen.
I'm sure we could find them if it's important to do so.
Okay. I don't know if it's important. It just seems we're spending some time on making sure that we're all fair and just on this. So we might want to make sure that we're doing that across the board when the time is available to do so.
I think the thing you all should know that I don't think there might be, Noel might know this, that up until about 2013, 14 in there, if the board secretary, who was the board secretary, submitted her own minutes, they were not done by staff.
Mhm.
And the finance committee,
Yeah.
the treasurer did the minutes and submitted them, and you did your own.
Yeah.
Then there got to be this, well, we'll have somebody on staff do it. But know that for a while, and they looked very, very different.
Yes.
But it's just know that that's the way it was done. It wasn't done by staff, and they look a lot different than they do now. There's a standardized form that's really good, but it's probably why you might not see them. I might have some, and if I do, Josh, I will send them to you.
Okay. Thank you. I think, you mentioned standardize. I think staff's doing a great job in standardizing
yeah.
a lot of these other things. So the staff team, I hate saying staff. It just sounds so weird. But yeah, so I think the more that happens, I think a lot of these things will get easier. So.
Yep.
All right, well, how about we do this? I move that we approve the March 25th, 2021 meeting minutes as submitted in the consent agenda.
Second.
Any opposed? All right, pass that and move on to announcements. Does anybody have any announcements? Linda?
I have an announcement. I received word from the office today that I have 2 applicants for your vacancy. They are stuffed away in the safe. And tomorrow morning, I hope to go over and either get Rachel if she's going to be in the office, or one of the gals in the office. I'll open them with somebody there and get them vetted and then get them to you. I need direction from the board as to when you would like to do your interviews.
I think we're doing our interviews at the next board meeting, aren't we? So we
When it's
decided.
scheduled.
So on the 25th,
22nd.
22nd, that's all I need to know. I've only got 2 people I got to talk to. I will, once they are vetted, do you want me to, do you want an announcement to go out as to who the candidates are for the vacancy on the website?
I think that's fair,
Okay,
if the board agrees. Once the board knows, I think the community can know.
In the wake of transparency, I think that's probably fair.
And Linda, please check your email. There's a little complication that we'll have to talk about.
Okay, I can't do it right now, but.
No,
will.
I know that. I'm good with you doing it later and then you and
Okay.
I can talk.
Website, okay. All right, I will, once I get a hold of them, get them vetted, find out what the issue is Glenn's talking about. We'll see where we go from there.
All right, that sounds great. Any other announcements? All right, hearing none, we will move into our first property owner comments.
Right. So we do have 11 attendees tonight. So if anybody would like to add their commentary to the meeting here, just use the raise hand feature in Zoom that you should find at the bottom of your screen. And not seeing any so far tonight. There is another session at the end of the meeting.
All right, we'll keep moving on then to committee reports. Anything, Noel, with ACC?
Not at this time.
Sounds good. Justin is not here. Joel, anything you want to add for document review? Okay. Finance committee?
Finance committee has nothing to report. We're just cruising along and learning our roles.
Okay. All right, Linda, turn it over to you.
Okay, I have two things I'd like to, NNE would like to discuss this evening. Back in March or so, no, back in February, we talked about online voting discussion and the fact that in order to really move forward with this, we would need a bylaw change. There was a real, I thought, mixed response from the board. We put things out there for about a month and asked for feedback from the community. I think we were about evenly matched with there, maybe a few more in favor of doing away with this member in good standing thing. And I guess what I'm looking for from the board is, do you wish to move forward and put a bylaw amendment on the AGM for this year and let the membership decide? Or do you want to not do that? Because like I say, that there was a real mixed bag of responses when we talked about it before. Because, you know, NNE is happy to put it together, but we're not going to do that if it's something the board doesn't wish to have done.
Anybody want to chime in?
I'm in favor of adding it. I don't see the harm in not doing it. I think it's great to involve the community as much as possible on some of these decisions. And yeah, I'm in favor for asking.
I'm sorry, Linda, can you repeat the bylaws change that you are asking about?
It's, how do I say it? It's the one that talks about the fact that you have to be a member in good standing to vote on all measures on the ballot. Otherwise, you only may vote on the budget.
So the bylaws change would be that you do not have to be a member in good standing to vote on the entire?
That's correct.
I'm in favor of that.
Hey, Linda.
Yes.
Side question. When y'all are putting together everything for the AGM, can you possibly look into doing that key with meanings of all the crazy acronyms we use for stuff for new homeowners?
You mean
We talked about it briefly. Like, like you get the voting packet and it's like
Oh, you want-
AGM, this. I'm like, what the heck does any of this mean? And I think it would be great to have like a key or something there for what do you call it? Like a glossary? I don't know.
I hear what you're saying. And you're saying,
Like the
and maybe
CCNRs.
put it in the booklet is what you're saying, John.
Yeah, just something that kind of encapsulates the acronyms and stuff.
Sure. We've got something, I think, in the views currently that should be easy to get the language from.
Okay.
Okay, because I know when N&E has discussed it, a lot of, I'm not going to be here next year. It's my year to set off. And, the committee going forward is like, I think that if we do want to go to online voting, if we do away with the member in good standing, it takes away the staff having to be involved by sitting with us when we register to vet people to find out if they're delinquent in their dues or not. It makes it easier for the N&E committee. They just have to register ballots, and it's like, that's the way, the way it's going to be. And it'll be interesting to see. It's going to take, I think it's 2/3 to pass a bylaw amendment. So you're going to get people voting that it'll either people really want to do online voting or they don't.
And is
Wait.
that 2/3 of the voting members, not 2/3 of the
That's
community
correct.
households? Gotcha.
Correct.
Well, we're not putting online voting on this one, right?
No, we can't do
Right.
it
Okay,
may-
you just kind of went off in the left field, so I'm just
I
trying
know.
to follow you.
But it's just, the committee, we've kind of talked about this a little bit and how making some of these changes makes sense for everybody, including the community, where, that any future N&E committee, that sort of thing. But we'll work on bringing something back to you guys for the bylaw, for the document review to look at and the attorney then. And I also think the parliamentarian asked if we'd have her take a look at stuff when we do bylaws. Makes sense. And I don't think it'll cost us a lot, but it would be good to have her input. So we will put that together. The second thing that I would like to talk to you all about is
Hold up, Linda. I think Joel had something to say on that.
Okay.
So sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I was just remembering one thing that did come up at the documentation review meeting recently that I wanted to ask you about, Linda. And since we're practically face to face, this works. It's a good time. We're on subject. I think it would be great if for bylaw changes like this, if we had like at least a paragraph to explain like the motivation behind not just the motivation, but what the consequences would be. Maybe even like if we could have a sentence of positive and negative or something like pros and cons kind of thing. Because in the past, it's just felt like when you're reading things, it's like, well, this looks like a really normal, great change, but is there something I don't understand about why it's changing, or where it looks fine originally and the revision looks fine? And it's like, who looked at that and really thought that it needed to be changed when both versions looks fine? So I think that would be nice just to be like really transparent about it and say like either what committee it came from or who recommended it or something so that we know.
Usually in the booklet, if you go back and look at your voting booklet, there is an explanation of each measure of why it's being undertaken and why the change is being proposed.
Okay, is there a some sort of, is there a way we can like trace it to, I don't know, and we can talk about this at another time.
Okay.
And
Maybe
this,
when I bring stuff forward to you from our committee, I'll be happy to discuss it in great length.
okay, great. Thanks.
Okay, the other thing that I gave you guys all is a draft copy of a 2021 Unilect proposal for services. The committee would like to use them again. The only thing is we're slightly, and we went through this last year, over budget. It's like around $300 when we get to, if we do incoming postage and pay for it. That's like, it's $1,200. It's if you look at the draft that I gave you, it's that estimated return postage. Postage is going to be, nobody knows what that is. Unilec's basic main services, that's the same cost they gave us last year. There's no increase from them. And the postage is based on what they knew at the time she gave me this. And it's an operational expense, but I feel that the board should have the opportunity to weigh in whether we once again offer return postage on the ballots, or if you just have people put their stamps on. And that's something that I feel the board should make the decision on.
Question on that? When we vote locally, is there a return stamp on there? When we vote for Whatcom County, I feel like we should model what we do in city elections. Does anybody know? Recollect? Steffi
I
says
only-
yes.
I don't know.
I think it does, but I'm not going to say for certain.
I don't necessarily,
I always drop mine in the box. I never.
Right. And we should, I mean, I don't know if we have that option, but I think we should model what our local city government does, whatever that is. No one seems to know, but
I'll text my husband. Maybe he knows.
are you?
shame on us. We should know this.
It is, it
Lori
does
was
have,
on, if we were doing N&E, the whole committee, Lori would know.
I'm fairly certain it has the no postage necessary spot on it. It doesn't have a stamp on it. But my question is, are you asking us to budget for it going forward or to make an exception currently?
Because the estimated return postage puts me over the budget. That's why I want the board to help decide, because it's an option. It isn't, we have to mail them out and have to have outbound postage. I do not have to have return postage since it is over the $15,000 budget, and who knows where the postal service is going.
Linda, we on the inbound postage, we're only charged if somebody actually mails it, right? So if someone doesn't mail it, then we don't get charged.
That's correct.
So all the more reason why I think we should put it on there, because we're not paying regardless of whether someone votes or not. We're only paying when someone returns it.
Last year, we put in enough for 1,900, and I think it says it on here, 1,900 returns. We only had a little under 900 that were actually returned to them that weren't dropped in our box at admin. So we actually got a credit on our final billing.
Credit.
They're honest to a fault, let me say.
I think I would be in favor of, not making our community members put a stamp on there.
Okay.
I think it just increases the likelihood that someone will take the time to vote as opposed to not.
I think it's a really clean way to do it. I just, I think the committee, in fact, they were kind of saying, let's do it again. I went, all right, then I'll get a draft bid from them. I will get back in touch with Catherine. She sends a really lengthy, completed form that has everything that they agree to do, which is pages long, because what we're required to do is, and it agrees to all that, I will have her get and send that so I can forward it over to Rachel so that we can get a signature and agreement as soon as possible. I don't know if by November, we're still going to be able to even have an AGM and 50 people in a room. You know, one day it looks like, hey, you know, a third of Washington state is vaccinated, and yet you hear that there's all sorts of new stuff coming up. I would just simply like to get our place on their calendar. I would really hate to lose it and end up having to need it. So I'd like to get this contract signed as soon as possible.
And then Linda, there's a cancellation date. So if we decide to do it in person and we cancel with them, we don't have to pay a penalty.
I'd have to ask because last year there was no option for that.
Right. It'd be nice to have a cancellation in mind in case we decide to go forward and have in person. Although from today, where we sit today, I'm totally in favor of doing everything online again.
All righty. That does
So are you bringing this back to the board at the next meeting then to get for approval to be executed, or what's the plan?
I just wanted to tell you, we're planning on doing third party again. I don't know that anybody has any objections. We want to use Unilect. We don't want to try and go out for 3 bids and do it with a brand new person. And, you know, you try and do that every year, you're going to have nothing but a mess. So we would like to use them. I didn't ask her to submit I think it's almost a 12-page document at first. I just wanted to have the board look at it. If you want to look at it again, when I have the whole thing, I'll be happy to put it in the board packet. You know, it basically is all the agreements. They looked at our bylaws, state law, our covenants, the N&E manual. They looked at all of that stuff, and all of that is within what they agree to do for us. But if you'd like it to come back, I certainly can bring it back. And it's
Well, it has to get approved by the board, does it not, to get executed?
No, because it's an operational expense. It's not a capital expense.
Still a contract over $10,000.
That's true. If that's your preference, that's all I need to know, because then I just need to tell Catherine I need it like ASAP to get you guys to approve it.
Not to complicate things, but then does that put us into the realm where we have to get 3 bids if it's a contract over 10,000 voted for the board, or is that part of our?
I don't know if there are 3 bids. The last time we went out to bid to try and get this done, we looked, all over the country. And there was one company here within Washington state, and then Unilect in California. And those were the 2 closest parties. There's been a company that's been talking to me that's called Votegrity. They mostly deal with online voting. And they're kind of a new startup. And I don't know if I would feel comfortable accepting a bid from them.
I say we use Unilect, do the stamps, and be on our merry way.
Okay. Do you want the contract to come back, AJ? That's kind of your call here. You're the one that asked about it.
Yes, I think our current policy that we have is the 10,000 limit.
Correct.
And I know we're working on that policy currently too, so.
Okay, that's cool. Hey, I have it on my dance card. You'll probably see it sooner rather than later.
Okay.
And I'm all
Just
done.
coordinate with Glenn and Orks and we'll get it on the schedule when you're ready.
Okay,
Thanks, Linda.
thank you.
All right. Long range planning, anything?
No, we've merged the last 2 meetings with the strategic planning. So yeah, those have been wonderful. We do need, we are looking for, I believe, to fill one spot on long range planning. So
I don't think so.
Ty McWilliams, I don't believe.
Oh,
we filled
yeah.
his spot. Yeah, so
That's
we
right.
do need to fill one spot. So any, you'd be happy to get some applicants there. That's all for
Right.
now. We
Thank
will
you.
be meeting this month though. So
Brian, are you going to put something in the Sudden Valley Blast?
yes, I will do that. That is a good idea. Thank you, Kim.
If you ask Brent, he can put it in the views too.
That's another great idea. Thank you, Linda. I will do both of those.
I can do that.
Thanks, Brent.
All right. Andrew's not here for Parks and Trails, so we will move on to the CBC item.
Mr. President, I actually,
Beffy,
Yeah.
you're not on mute.
I know.
Oh, you have a question. Sorry. Never mind. Go ahead.
You're talking again. Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm supposed to be on Parks and Trails, but I haven't gotten another invite, so.
Okay.
If
We'll
you
get
could
it
address
squared
that,
away.
that would be great. Thank you.
All right. Are you taking this, Jacob?
Yeah, sorry. Good evening, everyone. Jacob Close here talking about basically a reconfiguration of the CVC proposal from last board meeting. So as requested, I broke the request down into the capital items, which pertained to culverts, ditches, swales, things of that nature. I apologize. I should get you on the page where we start all this. One moment here. I think we're on page 7 of the packet. But what I did is I went through on that and pulled out the items that were not capital. So, for example, we've got clean green operations from April through September. We have the Firewise program in April. And I pulled all those items out and broke it down into total cost of CVC roads project, and then a total cost of Firewise, the road mowing also, and the clean green costs for 2011. So that A, gets you a real accurate picture of what those two items cost and keeps things in the appropriate buckets, so to speak, for financially between capital roads and an operational UDR request. So any questions so far on that? It's pretty self-explanatory. It just comes down to if everyone's comfortable with that or not.
I had a question, Jacob, about the amount for the roads portion.
Yes.
I always like context, and what's missing for me is the amount of money that's left in the roads fund. Does that take all the money from the roads fund?
It
It does not.
I can take that.
Go ahead. Someone's talking. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. No, we're still at the last number that I saw, we're still at 2.4 million. So we're just taking that 180, rough 185, 189, whatever the final number is, out of that. It is higher than what we've done before, but as we explained last time, we're doing a little catch up, and you will see the 2022 number in your budget process this year. So we'll be able to do some balancing there.
Thank you.
Josh?
Hey, Jacob. I know some community members are pretty hot to get Firewise going. Do you know how quickly you guys can start that with an approval here?
Yeah, Glenn and I had spoke of that. We do, just so everyone knows, I get a lot of emails and calls each day. The office does, and I'm sure some of you board members may even be hearing it. So Firewise, what we would have to do on a temporary basis to get that going right away we would have to use some operational staff that are currently, we would kind of have to reassign them to get that going. On top of all this, we have to hire staff, which I'll be honest with you, has been a challenge so far this year in the maintenance and golf course, and also a little bit in rec. So we would have to get those staff members hired and ready to go. So we're looking at a little bit of a lead time here. So we'd have to try and start Firewise and charge some of the staff we have to that program, and try and get as much going as we can. I know people are already making piles. I try to tell them we're not set up for it yet, but they're making them one way or another. So in talking with Glenn, we would try and get some of that started right now, or as soon as we're approved and can get set up.
Okay, thank you.
Just as a note to people, can you recap what Firewise is?
Mm-hmm. So Firewise Communities, and I believe the name has changed. There used to be a certification for communities that could achieve this level of fire safety, and it deals with getting rid of the fuels around your home, creating, in some cases, a defensible space. Just kind of a methodology to reduce the fire danger to a community. But the way we and at one point we were a Firewise community, I believe in 2010, maybe, before my time with Sudden Valley. But what our goal of this is to try and get as much of the fuel from branches and get that out of people's yards from the winter, and chip that debris up. And then the side benefit of it is we have some amount of wood chips that we can drop off for people to use as mulch and what have you. So it's kind of functions not only as a fire fuels reduction, but also a little bit of a housekeeping thing for people's yards from the storm debris.
And is that free to community members?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Part of the I've been trained in Firewise when Ann Mosnes was trying to get it going, and so what Jacob is describing is what's called ladder fuels, getting rid of the brush that's low that can catch fire and then bring it up into our canopy. And that's just one part of Firewise, and there's a lot of other things that we can do that some of us around the valley are trained to do that can come to people's homes and give them also ideas about how additional ways to prepare themselves for any wildfires.
so any other comments on this? We had a pretty good discussion on it at the last board meeting, so it looks like we got two motions to make to approve this stuff. So we'll start with the first one. Move to approve an allocation from the roads capital fund not to exceed $182,258, including tax, for the performance of capital maintenance of ditches, culverts, and swales in 2021.
Second.
Is there any other discussion on that? All right, all those in favor as the motion just stated? Anybody opposed? Steffi, are you for or against?
I knew you were going to ask me that. I'm for.
Okay. All right, that motion passes unanimously. Second motion, move to approve an allocation from UDR not to exceed $38,415, including tax, for road mowing, clean green, and Firewise activities in 2021.
Move to approve.
All right, any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Looks like that passes unanimously as well. All right, we will move on to the reserve study. Pass it over to Glenn.
All right, thank you. Last meeting, we brought we were doing an RFQ process and we brought a result, and which the board sent us back to do that again, and we're working on that right now. What we realized as we met and talked about it is that we couldn't get that level 1 done by this budget process, and more importantly, the audit, which we're required to do. So what we did is we came up with a couple of options. I provided one main option in the memo because it had the most data and information with it, and we were able to get that and provide it. So the 3 options would be go with Schwint because they did ours last year, and all the documentation on what that would look like is in the packet. Number 2 would be that we get another firm to do it, but that ends up costing us quite a bit more because they would have to do a site visit, and again, that starts to take us more time, and we get close to not making our timeline again. And then the 3rd option that I mentioned last time also is for us to do it internally. So with that, we brought it back now because we want to get things to you, be able to get this done and meet all of our legal requirements for our 2021 processes. And so we're looking for board direction on how we go about doing that. Take questions.
Linda?
Where will the $3,000 for this study come out of? What budget is it going to be, operational or reserves?
That's operational budget.
Okay, normally when we do the level 1, it comes out of reserves. That's why I'm asking.
Actually, those reserve studies have come out of operations.
That's weird because they're supposed to come out of SURF. If you go look at the SURF spreadsheet, they're in there, but whatever.
So what does it look like if we do it? Who does that if we do it in-house?
That would be our in-house staff, and Joel and I would work together to figure out how we're gonna do that and get that done. So it would be Joel. We would have he has a part-time person who's also CPA, and myself would be working on that in some form or fashion.
Is that something that either or both of you have done before?
I haven't done them when you call them a reserve study because they're done in the government, which they call them something different, but it's the same thing. So yes, I've done a number of them.
I don't have any faith in Schwint personally. I have issues with the current reserve study. I have issues with giving them more money at this point, and I would be more in favor of utilizing in-house staff to do an update for this budget season while Glenn is then doing an RFQ to get a new consultant on board to do a level 1 that's then ready for us for the beginning of next year.
That's the direction I'm leaning in as well. Sorry, y'all. No.
I have a question, please. And I don't even know if Joel can answer me. I thought at one time that our auditors helped us update our asset list when, as part of their audit, that they did that. Do they not do that any longer?
What the auditors do is they audit the fixed assets. So like when I'll give them a fixed asset listing, and then they do it from purely an audit standpoint, so to speak. Now, the reserve study is a required disclosure, supplementary disclosure that you'll find at the end of the audit report.
Okay, like I say, I just remembered that kind of out of my head and I wasn't sure. I knew they had something to do with our fixed assets.
Yeah.
And so does the reserve study.
Like what
Thank
the
you.
auditors do is they'll take the reserve study and then review that and then capture that information at the end of the audit report as a supplementary disclosure.
Gotcha.
I partially feel like there's, huge big ticket money items in there from, rebuilding the dance barn, rebuilding that parking lot, this parking lot. We would have to outline all the issues anyways that are in the current reserve study to have Schwint redo it anyways. So we would already be doing a lot of that legwork anyways. So I don't see the reason to utilize them. They don't seem to provide any benefit in my eyes.
Would it be possible, I know that, and we haven't approved that resolution yet, but to have the audit committee kind of consult with the in-house people who are doing the reserve study, is that a possibility?
I think if the board wanted to assign that function to them, they could.
Okay.
We certainly can refer stuff to committee and staff and, vice versa, both. It'd be one of those things. It's like, you'd send it, Glenn and staff prepare something, they'd review it and before the board kind of thing. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, something like that. We're going to review it anyhow. So,
Yeah.
but I just thought that the audit committee could play a role in working with staff.
Not opposed to that. Anyone else have thoughts on that? Well, do we have any objections to in-house staff performing the work?
I think it's awesome if we have the capacity. Do you feel good about it, Glenn?
Yeah, I think we'll figure out a way, and I think we can do what is needed to get us to the point we need to. We'll have to do a little bit extra just to make sure that because the auditor will take a special look at it. Joel has already verified that they will take a little bit better look at it because we're doing it. I'm not worried about that at all. It just might cost us a little more time and money for them, but that's not a big concern at all. So yes, I'm confident we can get done what we need to get done for 2021. I would not take on a level 1, however.
I have a question for maybe that Joel Heverling could answer. Is it just, since this is just a level 3, you're simply, a lot of the responsibility for updating is adding anything that we purchased in 2020 or anything we disposed of in 2020, correct?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, that's basically, since all we have to do this year is a level 3, it literally is just exactly what you say, is
Okay.
adding what we did, take out what we don't have. And then you'll have to, fully funded tables,
Yeah.
baseline funding tables, all that stuff will have to be realigned.
Yep, especially if we've replaced a piece of equipment or something that now is brand new that before was 10 years old.
Yeah.
How many hours do you all estimate that a level 3 will take?
I can answer that. I tell you the truth, I had no idea, since we have not done a level 3 reserve study calculation.
And I would say we would take a little bit more than a reserve study professionals would, but only 10, 20% max of that time. So they weren't going to bill us for a lot of hours anyway.
Mhm.
So, you know, and I don't have it right in front of me about what hours they were going to bill, but at $2,000 to $3,000, it was not a lot.
It's not much, yeah.
No.
Yeah. So it shouldn't, take over your day, the other responsibilities that you all have to do.
No.
Let's do it.
All right, well, how about we do this? Let's make a motion to have Glenn and staff perform our reserve study update for 2021 while continuing to do an RFQ process to bring in a reserve consultant to deliver a 2022 reserve study, a new level 1.
Second.
All right. Anybody call the question? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, looks like that passes. Brian, did you vote? Yay or?
I'm yay.
Okay. That passes unanimously then. All right, we will get that process going, and I'm sure, and Glenn will keep us informed on the RFQ portion of that.
Yes, we will.
So moving on to new business, the first thing is an MOU with Whatcom County Stormwater. And I, as an employee of Whatcom County Public Works and a board director, I'm going to recuse myself in this discussion and abstain from voting as well. So I'm going to tell everyone that before I turn it over to Glenn here.
Okay, thank you. So the memo of understanding for Whatcom County, this is an overarching agreement that is triggered by the stormwater project that I highlighted in the packet on Marigold Drive. That if you were out today there, you could see that the county had a Vector truck out there doing some research to prepare for design of the project. So this is not the full project. This is just an overarching agreement that we agree on what our roles are in these sort of projects. It's a fairly standard agreement. Done a number of these. I looked at it. Our attorney looked at it and reviewed it and was okay with it. The county is also, of course, their attorneys and everybody has looked at it and gone over it with a fine-tooth comb as well. Eventually, the project-specific details will be kind of under this agreement, and that'll be brought back for consideration when we get all the details and they get the design done and the project schedule finished. But this allows us to do this, and really, this is, from a staff perspective, we see this as a real positive because the stormwater fees that you all pay in Sudden Valley, which are significant. This is the first project that will bring that money back into Sudden Valley, and it's a water quality project that's going to impact Lake Louise and in turn Lake Whatcom. So it's a positive. The project will positively impact our system as well. They're going to be enhancing some of it that's our system, and then we'll take over that part. So a good project, a good partnership. The MOU is just the beginning of that process. So the process that will happen after you approve it and approve me to sign it is it'll go to Whatcom County Council for their review, get on their agenda and go through their review and assuming approval, and then the project will be triggered and we can get the specifics back through both groups. So with that, I'll open up to any questions you may have. Linda?
So we're starting out by talking about one project. But if I continue to read this agreement, it's going to be not just one project, but maybe continuing projects included as addendums to this agreement, correct?
Correct. The first project, the project scope and schedule will be the first addendum. But yes, you're absolutely right.
I just, I'm looking into the future here.
Yep.
There's one section that's a little, and I don't know, because part of my question is this going to cost us anything? And on page 29, under 8, item B, it says that SVCA will manage their existing drainage conveyance systems and new drainage conveyance system installed as a component of water quality treatment facilities as constructed under this agreement in a manner that will protect the county water quality treatment facilities from excessive fouling from sediment-laden stormwater. Upon notification by the county, SVCA will address conditions that are generating excessive sediments entering the surface flows that contribute to county-owned water quality treatment facilities. That sounds like we're on the hook here for something in the future. We have no idea what projects they're even talking about. They're talking about any sort of facilities into the future that I haven't even seen, that none of us have even seen the drawings for.
Absolutely.
That's the only paragraph that really concerns me a lot.
So the reason that it doesn't, it doesn't me and it doesn't our attorney as much is because we're required to maintain those anyway. And when they, like we were just talking about with the reserve study, when you get something newer, and we will have newer, it'll be easier for us to maintain those facilities. And that is all, the specifics of all of that are included in the scope and schedule agreements, which will be as the addendums, that'll be adopted as well. So we have to approve what that actually means each time. So I think we have the full control to draw the line in the sand where that is each instance.
Well, I guess, see, for my problem, I can say, yeah, we have our existing drainage conveyance, but they put in new stuff and then I'm responsible for maintaining them.
Well, let's be clear. We're only responsible for what. So as an example, in this project, they're going to put pipe in that goes into the structure, and they'll put a couple of basins that catch sediment on the uphill side. There'll be a couple of those that are ours to maintain, but the structure they put in, the full structure, which is going to be a big vault with sediment and filters, the county will take that on. So when you get to the specifics, we will take on what they repair that is going to be ours. There'll be a line right at a basin where this is the county's, and then the actual vaults that they're going to put in within Sudden Valley, they will maintain. And the reason they'll do that is because they're responsible for the federal and state regulations to be followed. So they're going to want to make sure that they're maintained to their level. And so that's why, I'm not really concerned, because we're not going to have to take on things that we don't do today, because they'll want to take those on.
Just want to be sure, because we don't know how many projects there are going to be, or even any specifics at this point in time.
There is a preliminary list that they've developed. So we have a list of 5 or 6 that are on their top 50 priority list. So we have an idea of what they may be in the short term, but as you know, those can change anytime.
Okay, I just didn't see it anywhere, and I know sometimes they post lists and stuff and talk about their different projects, and some of them come forward and some of them don't. So
Correct.
I just was curious about that. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone have anything else? I like the motion. I move to approve the MOU as written.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I'd just like to clarify that you're gonna be the one signing this, not me. With that one.
Yeah,
I
we'll
got my
correct.
pen ready.
Yeah, we'll correct the paperwork to reflect that. Absolutely.
I don't think I have to amend that, right? No, we're good. Okay. All in favor? All right, passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Would you like to join us back, AJ?
I'll join you back and pass it right over to Glenn for his assessment report.
Okay, so I'm going to share a quick PowerPoint here. Can everybody see that? Now let me get it to display. There we go. Okay, so drafted and you've had some time to review. I've also gotten a lot of response that I know a lot of the community members have looked at this, and we've gotten some pretty good feedback. So I wanted to go over it, share some reasoning, share a few more specifics, and then answer any of your questions. I also at the end have some costs to some of the recommendations, so that may help things. So first thing is the purpose of this is to identify the challenges that are faced. And that's one of the reasons you brought me here, was to help you identify those and come up with solutions. So it makes it very much easier for me and staff to implement things, and makes it very much easier for you as the board to identify what you want us to focus on first and what can wait. So that's why we've done it this way. The approach was, I talked with a lot of folks. I talked with a lot of the staff. I talked to many of the board members, most of you in some form or fashion. I also talked to vendors of ours. I talked to community members as they were identified and kind of reconnecting with the GM as far as problems they were having. So I was able to get feedback from them. And so I used all of that to bring this together and develop this. The problem statement is what I use to, and it's pretty common practice in my world, is to put one of these together. So when we're finished, when the recommendations are implemented, we have solved this statement. Gives us kind of a purpose statement and a mission statement for this change work that we're undertaking. So I took, I shared this, I think, in my interview, but I want to make sure I talk about it for all of those watching and anyone else who wasn't around there. Is I focused on 5 main areas when I was doing my assessment. So, and I'll go over kind of the specifics of each one in a second, but I want to go over the 5. So the workplace culture, the reason that's bigger is I believe that's your base. That's what sets you being able to move forward. So I've identified a number of challenges there, and then and then some solutions. The next one was structure. Structure tends to be something that happens organically, and it certainly has here, where we fill positions based on immediate need and then don't look at the big picture because we're so busy. Both staff and board, we've got lots of issues to work on. So we just kind of get the immediate need done. So we took a look at that from a long-term strategic way. The next one is the work processes, how we as staff get the work done. I also included policy in this, and this is how the board directs staff and sets policy so that we go about implementing that and creating processes and procedures for that. And then using our systems, I've highlighted a lot of, in the assessment, I highlighted a lot of technology enhancements that will help us be more efficient, more effective in getting our work done and communicating our work to you as the board, as well as the community specifically. And then the last one is external forces, which is all the things that, from a staff and board perspective, impact the work we do and we don't have control over. And in my short 3 months here, I've in a lot of your discussions and board meetings, I've heard a lot of those sort of items. And Sudden Valley has a number of them that are unique to it because it's such a big community association. So we'll talk about, I'll get into the specifics of each of those, but I wanted to kind of talk about some kind of the general thing. So big thing is turnover. In the assessment, there's a number of graphics about turnover rates. It's significant, and turnover really hits your operations hard. You lose a lot of history every time someone leaves. You don't get time to document what the work is, so you have to recreate it every time. And I've seen some numbers in the past that every time you lose an employee, no matter how long they've been here, it costs you 18 months salary to replace them. Now that's, some of that's theoretical, but some of that's real cost in actually doing the hiring process over and over again. So if you look at the cost of your turnover rate, which is over 50% over the last 5 years, and in some positions has been, there's one position that's high, it's at over 700% in the last 5 years. And so that's significant. You can't get any consistency. And I know that's a frustration for the community because every time they come to the window, they have to talk to someone else. And I've certainly felt that as the GM. A lot of people have said, oh, I made this complaint 3 times over the last 5 years. And now they're working with their 3rd or 4th GM. The GM is a big part of that. By the records that I can find, you've had at least 12 in the last 15 years. And so that is significant turnover at the top, which causes challenges for the staff, but also for you as the board and the community. I do think that was reflected in your survey, your community survey, where over half the people didn't know, or almost half of the people didn't know what the GM did or couldn't comment on it. I think that reflects that turnover there. Then the next one is the gaps in service and redundancy. Because of all this, we don't have a lot of backup for certain positions, and we certainly need it because it puts too much pressure on certain things. Again, that's inefficient. That causes frustration, does not cause, inhibits good customer service. The other part is we do rely on seasonals. I'm not going to propose that we change going away from that model completely, but that process has become more expensive than it was 10 years ago for, with all the new requirements for health care and sick leave and all the other things that go with that. The next one is the unclear priorities, especially when it comes to capital and long-range planning. The board has taken on a strategic planning effort, which is really going to help that. And again, that's one of my parts, is to encourage to keep doing that. It really causes you to be scattered as a staff in service delivery when you don't have the formal documentation for those things. And it's no secret that communication-wise, our website doesn't function as well as it needs to. We're not using all the channels. In addition, we're not talking about what we're doing from a staff perspective enough to where the public can understand what we're doing. And when we're doing it, we're doing it in our words rather than in what everyone can understand. So that's definitely, how can the community trust us and believe what we're doing and know what we're doing if we don't provide that information in a positive and transparent way? And then the last one is the relationships and community partnerships that need to be cultivated and improved. And so I think all of those are keys. In talking the transition of where we are to where we want to be, this graphic, I believe, helps. The top ones is where we're moving away from now, but I wouldn't say we're completely, have moved that. We've got some more work, a lot more work to do. So fear, being unfocused as a staff, being inconsistent in service delivery, having a confusing message to the public and to the board and frankly to each other, and then being isolated as a community. All of those things, need to improve. In the report, those were kind of the main themes that when I talked to everyone, it was very consistent across anyone I was talking to. So I'll get into some recommendations, but I wanted to highlight a couple of the problems before I dig in there specifically to each area. So workplace culture, I talked about the turnover, working on committee staff, community boundaries, and clarifying our roles is going to be important. Having a standard of customer service so everyone knows what to expect and each employee knows when they arrive what's expected of them in that area. And then one key thing that that I highlighted in the assessment that I wanted to make sure I highlighted here is that when I talk to the employees about their training, and that's how I asked the question, how is their training? How do they feel about it? All of them said that they were fairly well trained to do their jobs, but only 2 mentioned anything about professional development. So it's not even in the culture to look at how they get outside training to develop them into better employees and improve their product delivery. So to me, that's a very much lacking, that is an area that for us to improve on. Organizational structure, I highlighted in there that disjointed application of our compliance and regulations. It's been fairly inconsistent over many years. We had a redundancy in the M&O leadership. Our seasonal employee reliance is also a challenge. Work processes, our budget process needs work, and I heard that a lot from the board, but I also hear it regularly from the staff. So we'll be able to make some good changes there. Capital program decision making. We already talked about the reserve study being a challenge, but also just having all the data and information and having the time to actually debate it, discuss it, prioritize from a board and a staff perspective. There are a number of policies that need to be updated. The document review committee is already reviewing a couple of them, so we've already started that process. And then we have incredibly underutilized grants in our recent history. So finding a way to do that is going to be important. Systems, I highlighted a number of them, and I'll talk about the specific technologies, but our communication program is one of those systems that needs some work. Our utilities and how we use power and all of the resources needs a lot of work. Our maintenance facility and our rec center fall into that area as well. And then external forces, regional relationships, regional involvements are a big part of that. Inconsistent community expectations, and again, some of that is just not having enough information to really know what to expect, and we'll need to work on that. And then I did highlight the Sudden Valley reputation, which I have heard in almost in every board meeting that I've been in, I've heard from the board. So that's an important one. So let's talk a little bit about the recommendations. Culture-wise, I've highlighted that a new general manager and how that person is set up for success is going to be of huge importance. And I'm not telling the board anything they don't already know and are committed to do. I think that commitment shows in our next agenda item. So the recommendation there is to do a work plan for them in advance, to get some of these policy things updated before the new one arrives, start building some momentum on the change process so that they can come in and be successful and settle in and get to know the community without having to restart everything. Complete the collective bargaining agreement, which is ongoing negotiations now. We need to evaluate the committee and staff roles and the board roles in all of the functions. I do believe that the way we've done our agenda management process, that updating that has really helped on both sides. You get your information earlier. It's allowed you to provide questions to us earlier so we can get more information to you and to the public, as well as it's helped the workload balance for the staff. The pressure is not on when board meetings come, and so they don't dread them quite as much. And I think that's really helped. We've got more to do. Commit to the boundaries, policies, and deadlines. So creating some new deadlines. Your comprehensive work planning that supports the budget. I think we have a disjoint between our budget and I've heard this from the board and the community on a regular basis. What we're actually doing versus what the budget says we're going to do don't always connect. And so we want to, through our budget process this year, we want to connect those things and then establish and share with the public customer service standards and create those. And so one of the ways we're going to be doing that is I'm actually doing, we're doing an all staff workshop on the 21st of April, and part of that will include customer service training and expectation, creation of those expectations from a staff perspective. And then once those are taught to them and they're aware of them, then we'll share them with the community. The next thing is structure. This looks a little different than the one that's in the, we made some updates. We saw there were a couple of things we wanted to change the way they look. This is the version that will go in the, be updated in the report. So I wanted to highlight the changes and that I called out in the report that will help with the place, help the place operate. So what we did is I mentioned redundancy in the structure and the maintenance. We created one position to oversee all of the maintenance functions. And we have an interim position in there now. I'm proposing that position become permanent, that oversees them. So you have one manager, kind of one team, one mission will be able to come from that, a philosophy of standardization and product delivery that'll be consistent. We took the previous maintenance manager, and that position was the previous superintendent. We took the previous maintenance manager and made it a maintenance supervisor. So you'll have two lead type working positions within maintenance that will help support the operations manager in the day-to-day operations. And then I've proposed to take a little bit of the reliance off the seasonal and get us some consistent people, is some 3/4 time maintenance support. That would be like 9-month positions, but they would be regular employees. So they'd work 9 months and then have 3 months off. It's been something that has started to happen in the maintenance field over the last 5 years. So that's one of the reasons that I went in that direction. You will also see that one of the big issues that we've had that is our compliance and ACC support, both the committee and then how we actually implement the regulations around those, both for new building, but also ongoing, just the ongoing regulations and what I would call is code enforcement, making sure that people are following those regulations. It's been inconsistent at best. So the way that we're proposing to do that is actually have a 3-pronged approach. first, the ACC coordinator that we currently have has a strong knowledge and skill set in that compliance piece. And she's done a great job of supporting the committee as well. But one of the things that's missing is that land use portion that can, kind of that regulation, understanding the regulations and being able to define those and interpret those for not only the ACC and the board and the staff, but community folks that come in. We get a lot of questions right now about land use because people are looking to build on our lots because we're becoming really desirable at this point. And so that's what I'm proposing is to take the previous compliance and security officer, our manager, and turn it into a land use planner. So the ACC coordinator, the land use planner, and then our new ACC consultant that we have on the agenda later will become a three-pronged approach to make sure that we're doing both the new and any ongoing construction or rehabs, as well as any of the issues that come up, of which we have many. As you recall, one of the programs that has been re-implemented that has a positive impact right now is our tree program, and our ACC coordinator would keep managing that as well. That new position would support the ACC as well as, especially when it comes to how they implement their regulations. They'll also help us revamp our regulations, which I know is something the ACC has discussed many times recently. So the other part, the last one that I recommended, the last change was we currently spend some money each year on some part-time financial support. The challenge with that is we don't have control over who that is. We've been getting it from a service. So I'm proposing that we just make that a part-time position. When I evaluated all these financially, and I'll show it in a graphic a little bit later, but they're pretty close to revenue neutral because we're reducing some and some we're raising. I do recommend that security actually be overseen by the general manager. It's something that's it's high risk. There's risk to that program. It's something that regardless, the general manager ends up making a lot of the decisions and needs to be aware of all those issues as they move forward and assign them as, to wherever they belong. That became really clear to me as I took it over to begin with. It was very clear that those were GM decisions, almost all of them, on what we're going to do in partnering with other staff and then giving direction. So that's the org chart, and we can, if we're asking, as we get into questions later, we can talk about that. I can come back to it. So the next step is creating a master work plan and building that for each of the division, each of the departments, as well as for each department head, as well as for the GM. That gets that accountability that we've talked about, but it also gets a clarity of understanding of what we're focusing on. And that work plan will be fully developed through the budget process so that it's connected to the money we're spending. So it's very easy for everyone to understand what we're doing and why, and it's already been pre-discussed. That would also be very consistent with the strategic planning effort as it completes to make sure those objectives are being met by the staff as we move forward. And I do know a lot of that has been a big challenge in the recent future. Fully utilize our time, skills, and resources. That's something that has been a challenge, but again, tying everything to the budget really helps us make sure we're laser focused on what we should be doing. We've also found a couple of things that we maybe shouldn't be doing, and that's a part of that process as we clean up. And knowing what we can do and what we shouldn't be doing and making a conscious decision about that really will help the service level. Enhancing our use of technology. I do want to I'm going to highlight a number of those. our finance system, which is C3, which also does some land use. It's more designed for a condo, a high-rise condo, than it is for how we function. So looking at that in the future is going to be important. A citizen complaint or request software, and that would also be a work management software. We've looked at those, and I'll give you some of that in a second. An agenda management software that helps us do these committees and these meeting minutes and all of that a lot faster, as well as having a place to host our videos where they can go to it right on our website. There's a lot of those, and we've done some good research on those. Recreation scheduling, both our buildings and that's become even more obvious as we come out of COVID, and we're having to schedule people in our gyms more than we used to. Having a scheduling software and would really help us, and that software needs to be able to connect to our finance one. So if we are taking payments for anything, that will be easy without a lot of data entry. And then long-term records management is another one that we need to think about. We have a lot of paper records that should become electronic. And then the last one on this list is document our processes to get our staff consistent with their performance and their service delivery, as well as making it transparent on what we're actually able to do. I have found that the community is very confused about what we actually do and sometimes what we can't do and what we don't do. And we need to be really clear about what some of those things are. So especially as we gather a lot of new residents coming in, we're gonna need to be good about that. I talked about employee development, creating a employee development plan, not only for the whole organization, but for each employee. And that'll include performance reviews, that'll include training plans, and making sure that we're able to be committed to our employees. I highlighted the turnover rate. Our average length of service right now is just a tick over 18 months. And that we have 35 employees. 5 of them, or 2 of them, are over 10 years. 2 of them are at 28, and 1 is at 30. So when you factor those 5 in, it's even worse than that. And so employee development and commitment to that is going to be one of the key strategies to help with that. Definitely support from a staff perspective. We support that strategic planning effort that's ongoing. It's off to a great start, and that will really help staff and your future GM. And then seek mutually beneficial regional partnerships. You approved one tonight that's a great start with the county, and hopefully can open some doors to those things in the future. One of those recommendations, I think, is to have a policy agenda that the board adopts. So it helps your GM and helps any of you as you're out regionally becoming involved to focus on that. And those become our clear policy priorities as we're doing regional discussions. It will help your future GM quite a bit as they go working with other regions. So I'm going to highlight some costs. I've got 2 slides here. We've talked, the negotiating the CBA is going to have a cost. We don't know what that is, but we're getting closer to being able to know what that is. And as soon as we know, we will be starting to talk about that with you. Evaluate all of our systems now. The agenda management software, you'll see a cost there that says $5,000. Oryx finished a study where she got a number of proposals, and she is currently working on providing me a recommendation for this. But the cost, none of them that we've looked at are going to cost more than the $5,000. The asterisk is that we currently have a maintenance software that can't function or isn't functioning well. And we're paying $10,000 a year for that. And it's not going to be fully recoverable, although we'll be able to recover all the data that's in it. So if we were to choose to cancel that, which is what I recommend, you would be able to do this one and the citizen request software down below for the same cost. So it'd be a revenue neutral move. Your reservation software, we haven't started looking at those. We just have a new rec manager and our 2 rec staff. We met the other day and talked about how we would go about doing that. And we would bring a dollar figure, do that research this year and bring that forward to discuss during the budget process. Our staff development, we've already completed a leadership workshop. We're doing an all staff and developing a training plan on Rachel's work plan for the rest of the year is to work with me to create a performance review and evaluation system. We actually practiced one on her this week. So that helped us develop it, and we're going to put it together, and we'll do a class with the staff on how to do those, how to do them, and actually how to receive them. And then we'll kick that off here before the end of the year. The staff changes I've highlighted and talked about that they're pretty much revenue neutral. Of course, that doesn't include the CBA piece that's broken out separately. Citizen request management software. One of the great examples that you can take a look at right now is actually the city of Bellingham has one, and it's one we looked at. I don't know if it'll be the one we're recommending, but it'll it's called C-Click Fix. You can go on their website and get it. It also has an app. So the great thing about that is if someone sees a problem, they can snap a photo, put it in the app, and it comes right to us. And it will be pre-sorted and go to the right person. So if it's a pothole, it will go to Jacob and he'll be able to address it right away. Once he takes some action on it, there's a report email that goes back to the person that says we did it. So it also takes a lot of data entry out of the process and more real-time response for the people who give us the information. We also can use it the same way. I can snap a photo and send it to Jacob as well. And so can you. So it really allows us all our eyes to be utilized. The master planning of the recreation center and clubhouse. I haven't talked a lot about this yet, but one of the things that I can't find, all the studies are old and they are not fully vetted. And one of the things that they didn't seem to do is have a community assessment on what the community wanted. And one of the things that's very clear in the most recent survey is that the community wants to be a part of that, and they have definite, clear opinions on what that means. So I went out and got a cost of what that would cost you. Did I skip down? Yeah. Okay. I want to go back to this. So I went out and talked to, had an architect do a quick breakdown. I only did one. We may be able to get this cheaper, but I trust the one I got it from, that it's very thorough. And I know that's not a substantial amount of money, but I'm recommending that 22 in particular, the rest of 21 and particularly 22 be a planning year. And it's very consistent with your mission of strategic planning to be able to put some of this stuff together and really come down with some accurate figures. So you're making really good decisions and the community can actually be a part of it and see what those figures are and be a part of creating the future in those areas. We do know that there's lots of challenges in the buildings and we got to talk about those on the tour and got to see those. I also included the master planning of kind of a master planning process for Area Z, the maintenance area. That's a lot less expensive because there isn't a lot to do, and there's some interim solutions that could come from that that are not very costly. So, and we did talk about some of those on the tour, and I can share those if we need to. The financial software upgrade, we haven't started evaluating that process. It's something we would do in the future. And I put 2023 as a deadline, but of course you can move that around as you feel it needs. Records management is consistent with that. You might be able to get a system that does all of it. So it's something to look at together. As part of the strategic planning process, I'm also recommending that we look at the roads and do a assessment on your roads and do a road rating process where you can make capital decisions and know where you've got to do repairs, as well as where you might need to do a bigger enhancement of overlay or even some major repairs. One of the reasons I wanted to highlight that and highlighted it with the stormwater is that because we're in the lake management area, when we do a patch over 1,500 square feet, we need to mitigate stormwater. So we have an enhanced cost every time we do a major repair. And in the recent past, that has caused staff to just avoid those. We can't avoid those anymore. We need to be doing those. So this will help us actually work with the county to get some of this stuff permitted and clarified with them so that we can get that work done and keep our capital investment in our roadway and keep it healthy and make it healthier than it is today. Stormwater is the same thing. This is actually an area where we have a pretty good plan, but it's old. It's 7 years old. We've done some of those projects have been completed, and we might want to reprioritize some of them, as well as this part. We also, many of our projects end up leading to some repairs or enhancements in the water and sewer area because they're conflicting utilities. So it's an opportunity for us to have a plan and then partner with the water sewer district to get those projects done and maybe partner with them on their capital enhancements as well. And we would know that if we had an updated plan, that would help. I do believe in the future, you're going to want to do a cost recovery study. I've done a number of these. That's an estimate based on my past of 30,000. I don't think you need to do that this year, but you want to start thinking about it. And one of the big reasons is, yes, your ACC fees and those sort of things, but what are you going to do with your rec program as your rec assessment runs out in 23? So you're going to need to make some decisions for your 23 budget process. This would help you be able to evaluate that as a board and as a community. Grant study. I put a little money in there to have a consultant, a little bit of consultant help to help us identify grants that we can qualify for. And then all the things that I just talked about planning these projects and having a very clear CIP, a capital improvement program. You would then be able to tie your grant strategy directly to your specific projects and know whether you can be successful or not. And then you're not wasting your time applying for grants that you're not going to get or you're not likely to get. And then long term, there is no cost to this, but there might be if you wanted to add staff. I don't see a lot of need long term to add staff all over the place. Depending on what you do with your rec program, though, I do think you're going to get, based on the survey, and of course we'll see again in the next survey, is recreation is such a big priority for the community. That might be a place where you would look at or consider based on what happens to the funding package, excuse me, adding staff to meet those needs or not, but it'd be something you might want to think about. This is something that I would work on before my time is up with HR and with the board to kind of put together a perspective. I do believe some of those questions will be answered in the budget process. So with that, I just made these high level highlights. This is something I gave the staff. It's one of my favorite quotes. And when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Wayne Dyer is one of my favorite folks to read, and that comes from him. I would say it's actually been proven physically that happens. If you look at something differently, it can physically change for you. So it's important. And I actually think we have some great examples of that already in the last 3 months. I have told the staff, and I want to make sure the community knows, we have changed some things and we've changed the way we've looked at some things, but our full-blown change process has not started yet and won't until I get direction from you on what the priorities and where you want us to go with some of the recommendations I made. So with that, I'll take questions, comments, and I'll leave this up if you want me to. If not, I will take it off here pretty soon.
Hey, Glenn,
Yeah.
did Lauren help you put this together?
Yeah, actually, Lauren and Oryx, and thank you for reminding me. They did a great job. Oryx did a lot of the PowerPoint. I had a format, and she cleaned it up nicely. And then Lauren did she did the graphics in the report, and she also did the org chart.
Cool. It looks really awesome.
Yeah, they did a great job.
What?
It's hard to see everyone.
It is. So I saw Kim, and then I'm going to take this off unless someone wants me, so I can see you all. So I'll go with Kim, and then go ahead, Kim.
With Linda. Thank you for putting that together. It was a lot of good information. In the beginning, where you had the comments of things that needed to, just the overall comments, they all seem to be challenges. Were there any positive things that you noticed about our community? Because I didn't see those. And not that I'm looking for everybody to be slapped on the back, but I was just curious if you noticed anything positive, because there were a lot of challenges, and I agree with you.
There are, and yes, there are. So the first one is that the community seems incredibly ripe for change and just prepared to do it and super involved. And I think that is a huge positive from the community perspective. They have reacted really well to being communicated with. And I think their expectations are not as high as everyone thinks they are. They're not unreasonable. They just want to know. And I think that is a positive. So there's a lot of opportunity to grow through the community. I also want to highlight, you have a very strong leadership team here now. You have people who are strong leaders and have a lot of skills that we can build on. And then the staff that's here that's doing the work every day, they care a lot. They love Sudden Valley. And that is something that I heard every time I talked to a staff member, how much they cared and loved working here. And certainly with the things that I've highlighted, turnover, that only goes so far. But they came here because it's Sudden Valley. And, while we talk about the reputation is not always the best, the beauty here, and again, the beauty, the environmental focus, those are some tremendous things that you just don't see in community. And I said this in a couple of the tours, you also have a lot of property and open space and land that is a unique asset for you that not everyone has. And so those are some positives. I feel really, I know the report focuses on how to attack the challenges and get those fixed. But I just believe that Sudden Valley is prepared to and will become an incredible community that can be a regional leader in the future just because of how things are today.
Yeah, thank you.
Linda?
There's some changes for staffing and stuff that you've recommended we implement in 2021.
Mhm.
And aren't really, how do I say it? I think I'd like to see how that's not going to impact our numbers if we start taking on employees with benefits, that sort of thing. And there's not really any hard numbers on that. Just as a for instance, the CPA, the extra person that's down in accounting, you know, right now we only see that there are 4 people down there, but we're paying this 5th person as a, how do I say it? It's like it disappears. It's like we just say, oh no, that's a professional service and it's a temp service.
Right.
So we don't count it, but it really does count towards the money that's being spent on accounting. And I
Correct.
guess, and the other thing, I think I'd like to see some numbers on, so this is where we're, you know, we have a whole budget that we approved, that the membership approved.
Mhm.
And I think I'd like to see that there's a way that you're not going to exceed those benefits and everything else for 2021. 2022 is another story. But it's just, you know, some of this stuff you're saying we should make the changes in May, and May is just around the corner.
That's true. So I will as an example, we have the numbers and we can definitely put those together. As an example, what you just talked about, the contract we have for the extra services, you're right, it becomes more transparent about what the work we actually have them doing and what we're relying on them to do. There's a $5,000 difference and an increase there for over the contract. There's no real benefits because the hours are kept really low, and that's the way the person prefers it, and that's what we need. So that's good, but there is a little bit of an increased cost, but there's also a positive on control. But as an example, we're reducing a couple of manager salaries to frontline employee salaries, so that's where you get some of the savings. And then and love to show that. We'll show this to you at the early May meeting. Don't have a problem doing that at all. And then you got to remember, because a couple of these positions have remained open through the 4 of the first 5 months, some of them the entire time, you have a salary savings that we have over what was budgeted. So, you know, as an example, you have a compliance manager that we haven't had anybody fill that position for most of January, all of February, March, April, and into May. So all of that salary savings is included in was budgeted for, that isn't technically going to be spent. So that's why it'll be easy for us to show in 21 that we won't spend it all, and be glad to put a spreadsheet together to show all of that.
I think that's really important. I know that with some of these things, like with some of the major managers, basically the operations manager, where you want to put that all under one thing, and then the salary would come out of different pots. That
Yep.
was very confusing during the budget process. I think AJ can allude to that, where we were trying to understand, well, exactly how much money is coming out of facilities and how much money is coming out of the different accounts to give this person their yearly salary. And they go, you know, they give you a percentage, but that's, you know, it's not the same sort of thing. And I think that's a little concerning to me, that you're going to have, you know, for instance, if the director of golf is going to oversee recreation, golf, and the marina, does that mean that he's going to have part of his salary come out of each of these different departments? It's just, there's a lot of real nitpicky things, at least for me, that I'm concerned about. And last but not least, I like what you're doing with ACC. My concern is a lot of it deals with the building and the use of our land, but there's a whole set of rules and regulations, like things parked where they're not supposed to be parked. You know, and I don't know who's gonna handle I really don't think ACC should handle that because it doesn't really have to do with building. It has to do with how our members conduct themselves, and I don't see that reflected anywhere.
And I believe it does belong there. And when you look at how you budgeted it, that's where a lot of that's where that money was coming from, is kind of that same pot of money.
So
So
the ACC coordinator is also going to have to go out and look and see if there's a trailer parked for months down in the bottom of one of the streets here in Sutton Valley.
in a combination with security and our operations manager, yes, that's how we're handling it today.
Okay. It just,
Yeah.
because, I know we're supposed to go through a process of not finding them first, but just doing like a citation. And it's such a long process. And it seems like a lot for one person to try and handle.
Yeah, it's
all.
definitely not one person. It's the three of them working together, but also security is part of that. So security is the first, that example you just gave. Security would go down and look at that trailer and go, okay, and then give a warning and then do some of the background. But when we get to the fines and get into that sort of thing, now we move into the ACC because it's an in-house staff and we're the ones who can control that money flow. So that's kind of how it plugs in. But yeah, it's not a simple process, as you said. It's a long, drawn-out process that requires us all to work together. But putting them all in one group together helps them do a better job.
Okay.
Josh?
I've already commented on the aesthetics of this, but I think it's great. I think it's great that this is put together. It's nice to have, even though you're interim, a general manager to put together and present something like this. It's really nice. I'm going to be constructive here, so don't take it the wrong way. At the beginning, it talks about neighborhood to an affordable bedroom community. I have a weird issue with that word, and we talked about that during strategic planning because affordable is like different for everyone.
Right.
And what I see is an aging HOA that has kind of been an exclusive recreation resort, wants to be, and it's being turned into an inclusive, collaborative, flourishing community. And I see this heading in a great direction. And I'm so glad that you keep mentioning the survey, because I know a lot of people put a lot of hard work into that. I've used results from it. So it's great to hit on that, especially with how much flack we received for just wanting to ask our neighbors questions about the future. So thank you. And I think this is awesome.
Can I make a suggestion maybe? So there's a lot to digest in this. We've obviously had a week to read it, but we've also had, we take different to take it all in verbally too. And so I'm wondering maybe if we could have this be on our next board meeting agenda again as continuing business. We can digest this a little bit more. Maybe Glenn could share particularly those last, couple slides with some of the cost stuff with us, so we can look at that a little bit more when we're not, 2 hours into the meeting already, and we can kind of start to, I can collaborate with Glenn and figure out which things he, would like to try to bring forward first to the board and stuff like that. He's already talked about how, some people have already been working on some of this stuff to develop some of these costs and stuff. Does that seem like a good strategy to everybody? Because we do still have a few things to get through. It is getting late and we have a closed session too.
I think that sounds great.
So Sounds great to me. I don't know how you can't take all of this information and make a decision in an hour, but no, I'm totally supportive. That's part of the process. The other part that I will do for the next meeting is do a preliminary deliverables list for my time through this. So you can start to understand where I recommend I take it and where the transition happens. So we'll gladly do that. We'll probably do that at the May meeting, because you're going to be doing interviews and things like that at your next. So we'll do that at the beginning of May, and then we'll go from there. So thank you for the input, because it really helps me narrow that down.
Thank you, Glenn.
And if anybody has any specific, concerns, like you were talking about, Linda, or whatever, feel free to email them to Glenn, so he can start to wrap his head around those concerns.
Yep.
And get some answers and stuff for the board.
And I will send the graph, the cost table out to you, so you all have that. And it'll go into the report itself and be in the minutes as well.
That sounds great. All right, we're moving on now then to the RFP for the executive recruitment for the general manager. So the GM transition committee put this RFP together with Glenn and Rachel's assistance. The memo here kind of outlines the process that the committee would like to present to the board to follow for this initial stage of getting a consultant on board to assist us with the recruitment and search process. I've outlined kind of some high-level tentative dates that we have put together and in there, and there, as far as the money required for the advertisement of the RFP, Glenn has said he has capacity in his operations budget. And we were planning on doing a 2-week advertisement in the Daily Journal of Commerce and then the Bellingham Herald, which is a pretty standard advertisement for local jurisdictions. I know in my work, we always use the Daily Journal of Commerce on top of, we have to use the Herald because it's our newspaper of record, and that's legal requirements for government agencies. But that gets it out globally. There's all sorts of companies who just get those things and then send it off to companies who pay to be on their list or sign up to be on their list. And then I've also outlined 21 companies that we would target specifically with our RFP, just to try to really hone in on getting as many proposals as we can get. Glenn had a couple more companies that he has worked with in the past that were national firms that do some work in Washington that he was going to add that to the list as well. Most of this is just focusing on what was locally, and then the bottom half of the list is a few kind of national level firms and stuff. I think at this point, we're basically the GM transition committee is looking to get approval from the board to advertise the RFP, and then agreement that basically the big thing the board needs to discuss and agree on is, does the board want to conduct all the interview and selection process for the search consultant, or would they prefer to have the committee do it? And the committee is recommending that you have the committee do it. So the board doesn't have to take that time. We'd probably be looking at special meetings and things like that to do all that work. And so I think that's pretty much the gist of it. And so I guess I'll kind of open it up to questions here on the RFP or any of the timeline kind of that we've laid out. Generally, obviously that timeline is estimated and everything is a bit subject to change, with negotiating contracts and advertising things, sometimes takes longer than you anticipate. Linda?
Okay. Timeline says approved contract with consultant May 20th. The RFP says the proposal must be received no later than Tuesday, May 27th, 2021. So,
Yeah, the proposal, that actually should still be highlighted. There's that date and the interview range date we have to solidify here. Basically, I need to get confirmation from Rachel what exact dates are going to be advertised. It advertises once a week on Tuesdays, I believe. We're getting confirmation on all that, and then that has to all get updated before we officially put it out.
so you may be changing the RFP dates then? This where the proposal has to be received?
Yes, the advertisement close date, and then the interview date, we'll have to give ourselves, a few days to review all the proposals and then select the top rated consultants for interview off of those proposals. So we'll have to that'll probably be the week after whatever Tuesday it closes. We'll probably use the rest of that week to review them and have the interviews be that following week.
Gotcha. It's just, there was just a real disconnect there. I understand with does anybody have any ideas what the cost is going to be from any of these people? And I think at this time you should determine where you plan on drawing that money from to pay for this search. That if we hire someone and they do the search and stuff, that's always been how things are done. If it all comes from UDR, it all comes from UDR.
The costs will definitely vary. I mean, every company has their own. Some companies, looking at the proposals we got in 2018, I think Prothman was one company that submitted. They proposed a lump sum fee, and there's, one of the other companies proposes a percentage of the first year's annual salary, and stuff like that. You'll notice that in the RFP, that cost is a evaluation criteria. It's not our top priority. Obviously, we want someone qualified and competent, first and foremost to get us, I think Glenn's operational assessment, he touched on it a couple times, and I've talked with him about this, the importance of getting, a GM in here who, can get the job done and do things efficiently and effectively, and get things running smoothly.
Yeah, I just had a question about that because I was looking at dates and times and stuff. And like I say, it's something that the board needs to make a decision on. Like you say, when you went and look back in 2018, you can see that money was taken from the UDR for those initial costs of hiring a consultant. And then also we had some moving costs that we ended up, but it's just something for the board to think about.
I think Glenn's looked into that a bit. I'll let him chime in on that.
Yeah, like I was mentioning, Linda, you'll see in May the salary savings that we have.
Mhm.
I recommend you use that at operations just because you have it there and you've already budgeted some of the money. And I think it's directly related to you trying to replace this position. So that's where I would take it. Then it doesn't impact your UDR or anything. So that's where I recommend you take the money, and then that'll make it a lot cleaner for you.
And we would have that final recommendation, obviously, with the contract that we bring back to the board for approval with the consultant. And that's part of the process too. Like, we would select the consultant, we'll negotiate the contract, and we'll bring that final contract back to the board.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns? right. Well, I guess I will make the motion that the board of directors approve the advertisement of the RFP for executive recruitment for general manager / COO and direct the GM transition committee to select and negotiate a contract with the top rated consultant for board approval.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on the matter? All right. We'll call the question. The motion was just stated. All those in favor? Any opposed? What'd you do, Joel?
The first, sorry, I forgot my camera wasn't on.
No worries.
In favor.
All right, that passes unanimously. We will get that. I'll talk with Glenn and Rachel here tomorrow, but hopefully we can get it advertised Tuesday of next week. If that's too soon to turn around with the newspaper and everything like that, then we will get it out the following Tuesday. And we will update the board via email when we get all that posted. There'll be some work to do with get it on the website, everything like that as well. And there'll be some news articles and announcements and things like that that we have to make as well. All right, moving on to the last item under new business, ACC inspector contract. I'll hand that back over to Glenn and staff.
Okay, thank you. I'll take this one. I think the first thing is that it was time for a change. The past contract was 5 years in, and in my evaluation, there just needed to be some changes there. So between Susie and I, we contacted over 10 firms to get them to bid on this and talk to us. We did get 3 responses. We interviewed 2 of them. The third one canceled out of their interview at the last minute. As we looked at this proposal, we believe this is the best way to go. Wanted to highlight a couple of things that made us believe that. One is both Susie and I were very impressed with the customer service approach and the positive attitude and the way that he would focus on doing his job. We also very much like the knowledge base of in his short term, or his short term resume doesn't show it, but when we talk to him, he has experience in all the 4 areas that we were looking for experience, which is stormwater, looking at sites, looking at roadways, and looking at kind of the building, his inspection. His home inspection thing gives him a good look at all of those sort of things. So we also like the way that he understood what we were looking for and how we, and how the ACC actually works and how he would be interacting with them as well as the builders, as well as us, and how regulatory versus the service balance, which is very hard for this position, as well as the ACC coordinator. He had a really good understanding of that. So as I mentioned, the assessment, this is a kind of a 3-legged approach to being able to get our compliance up. This is mostly focused on the work that the ACC would be doing and the regulations of painting the houses and having all those things checked, as well as, of course, the new builds. One of the challenges we've had with new builds is that we have not been on site enough to be able to look at problems. And in talking with the ACC and attending one of their meetings, it's something they talk about every time. And so we want to make sure that we have someone who's going to do that for us. And I believe that this company is the right one to do that. It will definitely partner with Susie, because Susie will be out there as our ACC coordinator doing some of this work as well. And the third part is our planner and our slasher security will also partner in this. So we kind of we have 4 legs on the chair, which actually even better. As we looked at all of the things that we could do we wanted to be prepared for what is looking to be the busiest season that we've seen in a long time. And we verified that with the water district. We met with them a week ago and to talk about this very thing and how we coordinate with them. And they were pleased that we were looking to up our game a little bit because it'll help them as well. And so we'll be able to partner with them on our site visits as part of it. And they have received a ton of water availability, which is the first trigger for new development. Not every property develops from those. A lot of times they're doing them when they're preparing to sell for the water availability, but it does, we've had so many, it does give us a really good idea of what's coming down at us in 2021. Wanted to highlight on the fees part. I know that's always a concern, is the cost. The cost per project, the way it was billed before was in a lump sum, which didn't really help us manage the project and really see what the costs were and how many hours they were actually spending at doing the work. So what the best that I can tell from that is that we were spending $2,650 for each new project throughout the entire piece. That got us 3 site inspections and a plan review. And we, as part of the funding package, our fees are $3,500. So we were capturing more than that to begin with as part of this process. But the way I project it now and the way we projected the dollar figure is that this contract will actually get us 1 plan review because that's all we really need. And any follow-ups, of course, when the ACC changes, ask them to make changes, that's included. And then we're figuring somewhere between 5 and 8 visits. That would take this person 10 hours of time to do, and that cost would be $1,750. So I wanted to be really clear about the way we projected it is we don't know exactly how many builds we're going to have. Everyone's telling us to plan for 40, so we planned for 40. That's what the cost looks like. So we wanted to be very clear about what it was going to be. Again, that's why I believe the hourly is the best way to go, because we actually can control the costs and get, if we need an extra inspection, we can ask for it. We know what that's going to cost us. And the other enhancement that we'll get on this is that we're including reporting and doing a ongoing report that we can provide to ACC, we can provide to you, we can provide to the builder on everything that's happening on those sites. So that will really help us understand and see the evolution of the project. I do believe this accountability level will help our builders in the long run do a better job and get through their projects more efficiently. And the customer service piece, both for the board, especially the ACC, for our staff and for our builders, is a return on investment that we'll see in the long run. So with that, I'll open it to questions. I didn't see who went up first. Brian? Did I see your hand go up? Okay, then it's Linda.
Me or Brian first?
It's Linda.
Go ahead, Linda.
Okay, so my issue with all of this, and I sent my comments to Susie, is I'm concerned about each builder pays so much money, and that all or any of his inspections that he has should be covered by that $3,500. And it's really not the $3,500, because in years past, Sudden Valley has always gotten money as income toward our budget.
Not much.
And I've usually at $750. You and I have different numbers for not much, but a little bit different money for what a normal build is. But Susie put in her note to us that ACC costs for 2020 were $64,480. So I went in and looked at the GL, and that said that in 2020, there were new home fees of $38,850. So does that mean, that we're $30,000 over budget? I realize that some of these are homes that started in prior years, but
Yes.
you don't have a carry forward in the GL anywhere where you really see that maybe that wasn't all used by a specific builder, a specific home. And I don't know, maybe Noel can answer me if that's
And I
kept
can
track
too,
of.
but go ahead, Noel.
Oh, well, like you said, Linda, there's several builders and several homes that have taken years to complete. And so when they give us as their fee for $3,500, if it takes 4 years to build a home, you're not going to see it year by year. And I just lost my train of thought. So maybe that's why the numbers are kind of skewed. Again,
Actually, the reason that, if you remember, that Joel mentioned this in the financials for January, that our billing came in late. So we got a late billing of $30,000 in late December that showed up in the January financials. And if you remember, he was talking about putting them back. And so when they go back, you'll see the 68,000 number. So that's the issue with the why they look different right now. And then to Noel's point about a 2 or 3 or 4 year build, one of the challenges we've had is the way that we did it in lump sum. We never did a revisit to the site, and that has caused us a lot of grief in that a builder can do a lot of different things in a year period when no one's watching, and we need to be watching. This allows us to go back, still use that 3,500, because you're absolutely right. That's what they're paying for. So we're using that $3,500 to make sure they get their inspections. The other part of it is, at least in the short term, you may see an increase in fines, which we take from their 5,000 lump sum that they give us, that they can get back if they don't get fined. Yeah, their deposit. So
5,000 or more.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Susie. Actually, according to our fee schedule, we can make it up to $10,000, and that's at our discretion.
Yeah.
I think my only concern is with the way we did it before, not that it was perfect, but you knew that they were going to only use $2,750 of the $3,500. And I'm just saying that if you have more site visits, if it takes more time, I don't know, then you can end up with actually not getting as much money. Not that we get a whole bucket full from them, but that you wouldn't have that much. I also asked Susie a question about if this guy starts April 19th, this person, I'm assuming it's a guy, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Joel. His name's Joel.
I wanted to say, we've got all sorts of current builds that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
That money has already been taken from their 3,500.
Correct.
To pay for prior inspections. And it's like, I just want to make sure that you've kind of got some checks and balances going on here. That's all.
Yep. Because,
you have money that's been spent, and are we going to end up in the hole? Just,
No.
I don't know.
And no, there's
You got a crystal ball. Okay.
Yeah, we have such a leeway, and I'm not worried about that. And that's something that Susie and I are working on in the transition is that the previous consultant is actually providing us a report of where he was on exactly everything. Based on his billing, we know kind of where he was. So we know what's been billed to each project at this point. He will give us a final bill, so I'll know, and then we'll be able to balance that. even if he fully billed and we needed to do, we could do up to 5 inspections after he said it was final and still not go over our 35.
Okay.
So I'm very comfortable with that.
Okay.
Yeah. And Linda, previously, we were charged lump sums for every inspection that he did. But again, we weren't always sure he actually did those inspections.
Oh, I hear you.
And even with a recent one, I find discrepancies that, did he even show up? And so, going by his previous fee, he would have had to spend 15.7 hours on each construction site in order to get that $27.50.
Yeah.
And I can guarantee there's no way he spent that much time on each site. So we're getting a value with going hourly. It sounds really high at first, but if it's efficient and if he does it, there's going to be some construction sites that will probably take more hours, but there's also going to be other sites that won't take as much.
That's true. As long as they stay within the 3,500, that's fine. It's when you're, if somehow for some reason we're going over that, that's my concern.
I doubt that we will, and we're going to be starting being tighter on our appliances too.
That works for me. I just want to make sure about that.
Oh yeah, I'm all over it too. Yeah. I'm with you.
Okay, thank you.
What happens to the rest of the money when they don't spend? If the inspector doesn't go up to the 3,500, does it go back to the builder?
Nope.
No, it goes to
That
Sudden
stays with
Valley.
us.
It's part of our revenue.
That's part of the Sudden Valley. That's part of the builder fee. They also, when they start construction, there's a $5,000 deposit that they make. And so if they do everything right and they don't compile any fines or anything, they will get that $5,000 back.
So, but if the $3,500 isn't used by the inspection,
we
or
keep it.
all of it, and then where does that go? Does it go to an ACC fund? Does it go to operations? Does it go in some general bucket?
Good question.
Where does
I
it
don't know.
go?
I don't
Goes
know.
into operations, Kim.
Does
It's
it?
part of our revenue source.
Yeah, it's automatically recorded in ACC Security Department. So when we get the revenue, it becomes revenue in that department as soon as we get it.
Okay.
So we don't like return it, so to speak.
No, yeah, that's part of the construction fee.
Okay.
I'll
That
just,
$5,000 that we get is not revenue. That deposit that sits in the balance sheet as a liability until we give it back, or if we hold any of it back because of the fee, then that would become revenue, so to speak, at that point also.
So that goes into which account?
ACC
That would-
revenue.
Yeah, that would become ACC also revenue.
In the ACC department. It's just part of the overall operations budget as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
but in that specific department. I'd just say I definitely support moving away from a lump sum contracts. We never use lump sum contracts at work unless you can clearly define exactly what the scope is and have a very solid price negotiated, and that scope doesn't fluctuate or change, which we're obviously hearing is not the case in this position. You don't get what you want, and they're always going to cut corners to enhance their profit margins in the rates.
Yep.
And that's just how lump sum contracts work, and they take significantly more time to manage as a result of that. You need to be on top of that person constantly. So I would be in favor of moving towards the hourly rate contract. As a result of that, that's what I use at work all the time for everything that we do.
Yeah.
We never use lump sum contracts. The only thing we do lump sum on is construction bid items. Is there any other discussion on the topic?
Call it.
Is this a one-year contract or just ongoing?
It's a 1 year, it's actually a 3-year contract with a 1 year renewal. So each year we'll do a meeting and verify that we want to continue and that he wants to continue. And if we both agree, then it'll be another year if not. And each time we'll report to you that we're continuing or not.
Okay, thank you.
And I also want to mention that he has no ties to Sudden Valley, and so there's not going to be any cronyism or special favors anywhere. He doesn't have ties to the construction community.
A key factor for us.
Yes.
Sold.
Yep. It's been a problem.
All right. Any other discussion on the matter? We will then move forward. I move that the Board of Directors approve Glenn Akimoff to execute the agreement for consultant services for architectural control inspections as presented in the agenda packet.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion on the matter? All right, we will call the question. The motion was just stated. All those in favor? Any opposed? Joel, you want to tell us where you're sitting? Bueller?
Anyone?
Dobbins.
Maybe
Right.
baby duty's called.
Baby duty.
All right. Well, motion passes.
With or
Joel
without
is not voting, I guess we'll just say. On that one. He is abstained, I guess, for lack of better word.
Who's not voting?
Joel Dobbins, he isn't.
It's indisposed.
He's black. Screen's black right now. And
Indisposed.
That means a yes vote.
okay. We have a closed session now to move into. Do I have a motion to do so?
Move to closed session.
Second.
All right. All those in favor? All right. See you guys over there.
Okay.
Everyone has their serious faces on.
It's the I'm ready for bed face. Or / I'm ready to sit and turn my brain off for an hour before I go to bed.
You could do that? Like mine still goes.
The night is young.
I was a lot better at it before all this stuff and
Yeah.
entered into my life,
that's the
but
point.
you know, if it's not something racing through my brain, it's this stuff.
It's
So.
this stuff. And then Josh has to go eat dinner.
Can't find Crusher.
All right,
My
do we
monster
got-
I love how everyone knows how I do things.
Yeah. Eat at midnight, like dinner
Oh,
time.
really? Oh,
Bye.
All right, I think that's everybody here. So motion, do we have a motion to move back into open session?
I motion to move back into open session at 10:08 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor? All right, we'll move into property owner comments.
Okay, we do have a few people still with us. If anybody would like to jump in for property owners' comments, just use the raise hand feature in Zoom. And just 3 hearty attendees at this point.
bless their hearts.
You guys are better people than me.
Not
They don't want to
so
say
much this time.
anything? We should make them say something since they've hung on so long.
You are forced to make a
We had a
comment.
pact.
You're forced to make. Okay,
Had a
sign.
pact to keep
Okay,
it 3 points.
Let's do this. No one's speaking, so motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Okay.
adjourn. Second.
Third.